Habitat demos for Friday, October 20th. We have some really fun demos today. We'll start off with Chris showing us some new UI enhancements. Take it away, Chris.
Okay. Can y'all see the Builder UI?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show is just a little enhancement that we made recently to your Builder web experience that lets you get some feedback and know whether or not your Docker credentials that you've wired up are actually valid. So what we had been doing is just accepting your username and password here, and then not checking to see if that was correct, just accepting it, and then you'd have to kind of wait for your build to run and attempt to be published and watch that fail and then come back and enter your stuff again. So we made a little enhancement that will tell you if you enter credentials incorrectly, and you can fix that up. Get validation that stuff is correct. So that's just a little bit, little fix that should help kind of smooth out your experience here. And then, so that's the first thing I have to show. Second thing I have to show is we have a Visual Studio Code extension that we just released. It's not much to it yet, but if you're a Visual Studio Code user, you might find this helpful. You can find it in the marketplace under Habitat. I'll just install it here, and then it'll ask me to reload. A few of the things. So I have a simple like Node app here with an app.js file. This is just a nag. I'm not sure what that's about, but that's not my extension. And so some of the things you can do with the extension now that I can do various Habitat related things now that I have it installed. I can like do a new scaffold, although it's telling me that I haven't installed Habitat, so I can install Habitat right away. Here it'll just install the latest version for me. So it's done that here. Since I asked for a new scaffold, it'll prompt me for the kind of scaffold that I want. I'll pick Node here. It'll kind of kick that out here for me and generate that scaffolding for me. I can enter the studio, and it asked me for my origin there. Actually, I don't know if that was correct. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, it picked up my origin from my environment, which I happen to have an environment variable set for. And you can do things like run a build and stuff in the integrated terminal. There are various facilities for discovering different variables and callbacks and stuff. There's some syntax completion that you can do as well. There's a bunch of stuff here. So, would love for people to start giving it a look and giving us some feedback on it. The goal here is like to smooth out your plan development experience and maybe build in some richer integration with Builder and stuff over time. So that's what I got. That's
awesome. Both those are really awesome. Saving time, not having to do builds because the credentials are not quite right is definitely a big one. And then the VS stuff is just, it's amazing how much stuff there is already for getting a quick start on that. So that's awesome. Cool. Okay, next let's go on to Ryan, who's going to show us even more UI.
Yeah, this is another little one that Chris and I collaborated on. And similar to the Docker Hub one, the two kind of issues we saw people running into right away, like looking at failed builds and stuff from like the launch on, where the Docker Hub creds was one of them, and another one was not having installed the GitHub app. So these are two fixes. That fix and this one are the ones that we made kind of right away. And this one happens when you go to connect a plan. If you don't have the Habitat GitHub app installed, then you won't. Then it's not going to ever find, or none of your repos will kind of like show as verified. So in this case, let's see here. I've already got it installed, but if you click on it, you'll see, like here, I can see that I can configure it. Otherwise, you'd see an install button here. And then if you're a developer working on Habitat and acceptance or development, you'll see the appropriate install links there. And then the other bit that we kind of cleaned up was when you are as you're typing stuff in here, we change some of the messages, which that's not a big thing, but just to help kind of clarify, because this is where people were getting stuck in particular. So yeah, basically this just was instructions with a link, and if you missed it, this would just continue to kind of like fail. So now we try to make it more obvious that it's there and explain it in text. Little one, but effective, I think.
It's awesome. That really smooths out the workflow also. Thanks, Ryan. All right, we will move on to Nell showing us some cool scaffolding improvements.
All righty, let me go ahead and share my screen. We're gonna go meta for a second. All right, and are you seeing my terminal?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so over here on the left, I guess on the right too, I have an very simple Node application, a React application called Pokédex. And I've already habitarized it. So if I look in the plan.sh, all I'm doing is specifying that I'm using the scaffolding node scaffolding. I'm not doing any custom do install or do build. And why this is noteworthy is if I look at the package.json, I noticed that I've got some, number one, some dev dependencies, and two, some special scripts that need to run on start, build, test, eject, etc. Now, originally you had to add in special stuff to do build in order to do this, but now with the newest release of the scaffolding, what I would do is all I would have to do is build this. Let's go into Hab Studio Enter. I'm not actually going to do the build and Docker export just because that takes a little bit of time, but pretend this is a cooking show. I put it in the oven. Let's pretend it's already come out and I've already exported or built the application, exported it to a Docker image on my system. And now let's go ahead and run that Docker image. And it starts up just fine. There we go. All right, it's running on localhost 8000. If I head on over into my browser, let's stretch this so you're not going down the rabbit hole. There is my running application. It's a little Pokédex. So now you can use the pre-build, post-build, etc. scripts that you define in your package.json with just the scaffolding itself. It's pretty darn cool. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And back to you, Salim.
That's awesome. Fantastic, and love the Pokédex demo app too. Wonderful. Okay, cool. Last but not least, we have Elliot, who's going to show us some improvements to the Build Studio also.
So this is one for and so
Elliot, you sound like you're underwater. Can you get a little closer to the mic or check that you're using the correct mic?
Okay, how about now?
Oh,
yes.
So much better.
Okay, cool. I guess Hangouts selected the one of my laptop that was in clamshell mode. That's cool. Thanks, Hangouts. All right, can you still see my screen? Okay, yeah, I think you can see my screen. Okay, so this is a dev studio for Habitat. What it's going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and start it. So all you have to do to start the studio is have Studio Enter. And it's going to take advantage of the Studio RC file that actually Jamie wrote, and then I took advantage of and piggybacked off of it to make it a little bit more seamless. So what it's going to do is it's going to download all of the builder services except for the web app, because we're primarily using this for web app development or for the builder web development. And so it's going to set up the database. It's going to get all of the services that you need to run Builder running, and it's going to set up an environment where you can even run build jobs inside of this inside of this container, which is not the speediest thing ever, but it is effective for doing web development. And so I'm also going to go ahead and start up. For those of you that have not done web development with Builder before, you can do it inside of a Docker container, but as file mounting goes, sometimes it's a little slow to detect changes, so it's a little better to do it on your host. So all you have to do here is npm start, and that'll go through, and it's going to kick off in a window that is not shared. And so once this, I'm not as good as Nell. I did not do this cooking show style. Dang it. But what this is going to do when it's done, it should should be almost done. So right now it's just creating the database, and then in about 15 seconds it should have most of the services started. And then there's helper commands in here to create an origin, to upload your keys. If you are a member of the core origin and you have the core keys, it automatically detects those on your system, loads them into the studio for you. And you'll be able to create and actually load packages if you have Chris Nunziato's special package tarball, which is linked in the dev instructions. So come on. Okay, cool. So what it did here, you can see it actually generated and uploaded all of our keys that we need to communicate with GitHub. All of our builder keys it generated for us. And you can see that the services will slowly start to like sort of come up, and then the last one that usually comes up is origin serve. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over because it depends. It depends on how overloaded my system is as to how long it takes to do the rest of the services.
That's great. That's awesome. That has sped up your dev cycle.
Oh yeah, no, immensely. Because if I'm just doing web development and I don't have to load any Rust code, if I don't have to compile any Rust code, I mean, it gets me off the ground before I can get coffee in the morning, which is really good.
That's great. That's great. Coffee is always good, and not building Rust is always good too, I guess. All right. Okay, I think that's it for demos, unless there's any more walk-ons. All right, I think that's it. Hope everybody enjoyed the demos, and see everybody next week.